It started as a local uprising and mutated into the world's largest live-fire weapons expo. Today, we track the chaotic arsenal of the Syrian Civil War, from World War II relics to the dawn of drone warfare. This is the story of Syrian firepower, starting off with small arms, the Makarov PM, the Soviet police pistol, ubiquitous, cheap, and totally underpowered for a war zone, but better than throwing rocks. Tokarev TT-33, an antique Soviet hand cannon, lacking safety features. It was just as dangerous to the user as the enemy, but offered high penetration for a sidearm. Mosin Nagant, the legendary garbage rod, a century-old bolt action that refuses to retire, slow and clunky, but still lethal in the hands of a patient marksman. SKS, the Simonov, a semi-auto precursor to the AK. It was older than most of the men firing it, but remained a deadly reliable option for village militias. AKM, the stamped steel bread and butter of the conflict, often mistaken for the AK-47. This unkillable rifle was found in the hands of every single faction, from the army to ISIS. STG-44, a bizarre blast from the past. Thousands of these rare Nazi assault rifles were found in a dusty Aleppo warehouse, serving one last tour of duty 70 years after World War II. FNFAL and G3, the right arm of the free world. Flowing in from Libyan stockpiles, these battle rifles offered hard-hitting 7.62 NATO power for long-range engagements, M16 and M4 series. The Western injection, captured from heavy stocks or supplied to vetted rebel groups. These brought optics and rails to a mostly iron sight war. Dragunov SVD, the designated marksman's best friend. Reliable and rugged, it turned city blocks into kill zones for decades. Steyr HS.50, an Austrian anti-material monster. Alongside its Iranian clone, the Sayyad II, this rifle punched holes through brick walls and light armor with terrifying ease. Up next, machine guns. PKM, the universal squad support. If there was a firefight in Syria, this belt-fed beast was singing the background music. DSHK, known as the Dushka, a heavy Soviet 12.7mm slugger, too heavy to carry, so it found its permanent home bolted to the back of pickup trucks. Now, this is the anti-tank weaponry, RPG-7, the ageless tube, used by everyone against everything, from tanks to infantry clusters. Simple, effective, and everywhere. M79 OSA, the Yugoslav tube. Smuggled in by the thousands early on, this distinct sci-fi-looking launcher became the signature rebel heavy weapon of 2013. In 9K111, faggot and conkers, the Soviet wire-guided standards. Before the Americans got involved, these systems were the primary method for turning government armor into burning scrap. BGM-71 TOW, the star of the TOW War. Supplied by the CIA to rebels, these missiles devastated Syrian armor columns and turned tank hunting into a viral video genre. 9M133 Kornet, the Russian answer to armor. Laser-guided and incredibly lethal, it was the scariest thing a tank crew could see flying toward them. Next, armored vehicles. T-55 and T-62, the elderly Soviet reserves. Obsolete on a modern battlefield, they were covered in slat armor and sandbags in a desperate attempt to stop RPGs. T-72, the backbone of the Syrian army. Pushed to the limit, crews welded on Adra or Shafra armor, literal metal cages and debris, to survive the urban grinder. T-90, the modern Russian bodyguard. Equipped with glowing Stora eyes to jam missiles. While terrifying to look at, they actually struggled to stop the wire-guided American TOWs. BMP-1, the Soviet battle taxi. Thin-skinned and cramped, it was used less for transport and more as a mobile cannon until it inevitably exploded. DIY battle buses. When factories aren't an option, you use a welder. The Kurds turned bulldozers and trucks into Mad Max-style fortresses to survive ISIS suicide attacks. The technical, the unofficial mascot of the war. Usually a Toyota Hilux with a heavy gun bolted to the bed. Fast, cheap, and the primary cavalry of the insurgency. BIEDs. The poor man's cruise missile, not just car bombs. These were up-armored trucks and BMPs driven like precision artillery to breach enemy lines before an assault. Now, let's look at air power. L-39 Albatross and SU-22. the desperate workhorses. Trainers converted into attack jets. They flew low and slow to pound rebels when advanced jets weren't available. Su-24 Fencer, the sledgehammer, the primary bomber of the Russian intervention, while others provided close support. This swing-wing beast rained hell from high altitude. Mi-8 and Mi-17, HIP, the face of the air war, a reliable transport helicopter that became infamous as the primary delivery truck for the regime's barrel bombs. Up next, artillery and rockets. D-30 howitzer, the classic towed field gun. Rugged and simple, it leveled neighborhoods from miles away. BM-21 Grad, the Hail, a truck-mounted organ pipe launcher firing 40 rockets in seconds. Inaccurate but psychologically devastating. TOS-1A Sontsepyok, the Buratino, a Russian thermobaric nightmare. It fires fuel-air explosive rockets that suck the oxygen out of tunnels and lungs alike. Fateh 110 and M600, replacing the clumsy Scuds. These Iranian-designed precision missiles turned terror bombing into a calculated science. Then, air defense. Zu-23-2, a twin-barreled autocannon designed to shoot down planes, but in Syria, it was almost exclusively used to shred infantry on the ground. ZSU-23-4 Shilka, the radar-guided sewing machine, a four-barreled terror that could suppress entire streets with a wall of lead. SA-16 and FN-6 manpads, shoulder-fired heat seekers. These smuggled missiles grounded low-flying helicopters and forced jets to bomb from higher altitudes. Finally, we have improvised and unconventional weapons. The Hell Cannon, a garage-built mortar. It fired propane tanks filled with explosives and shrapnel. Inaccurate, but the explosion was absolutely massive. Remote weapon stations. DIY sniping. Using an iPad, a camera, and some wires, rebels built sniper nests they could fire from the safety of a basement. Commercial drones. The quadcopter revolution. ISIS weaponized Amazon orders. They strapped grenades to cheap DJI drones, inventing modern aerial terror. Barrel bombs, the lowest tech Air Force weapon. Literally oil drums stuffed with TNT and scrap metal, pushed out of helicopters to crush urban centers cheaply. Chemical weapons, the darkest chapter. Sarin and chlorine gas, deployed to choke defenders out of entrenched positions, crossing the ultimate red line of warfare.